In this lesson, we are going to create a box and whisker plot, and we are also going to interpret a box and whisker plot. Box and whisker plots are a way to display data. A box and whisker plot separates data into 4 equal parts. The way that this is done is we first of all must put the data in order from least to greatest. Once the data is in order, we find the median, which is the middle of our data. Then, once we find the median, we mark that, and it has a special name called quartile 2. Once we do that, we also find the median of the lower part of the data. That's called quartile 1. And then we find the median, or the middle, of the upper part of the data, called quartile 3, or the upper quartile. And then we mark the very maximum end and the minimum end. And these 2 pieces of information connect to our other quartiles, and those are often called the whiskers. Please remember that each section of our box and whisker plot represents 25% of the data. So if we take a look at an example where we have 13 students that were asked how many brothers and sisters that they have. So we have these responses of 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 5, and 7. What we need to do first of all is to make sure our data is in order from least to greatest, and it is. So next, what we need to do is to find the very middle of our data. We find the middle by simply counting from each end. So since there are 13 students, we want to find the very middle piece of data, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then counting the other end, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we find that this number 7 from each side, is the very center of our data. Then we divide our other lower part of our data in half and find the median, or the middle of that, which is right here. And because there is a 1 on each side of the data, that means that the middle of this data will be 1. What we do is, if these 2 numbers are different and we want to find the very center, we add them together and divide by 2. Again, we want to find the very middle of the upper portion of our data, so we go and find the center by physically counting 3 on each side, and because they are the same, that median or middle will be 3. And again, if they were different, we would add the 2 together and divide by 2. Now we want to graph this to make our box and whisker plot. So when we do that, we're going to start with our very lowest number, which is 0, and then we want to evenly number our number line, and from there we will draw our box and whisker plot. Some teachers will have you draw it above, some teachers will have you draw it below, and some teachers will have you draw it right on the number line. I'm not fussy either way. I usually have my students draw it above, but it doesn't matter to me either way. So 2 is our middle or median, so we're going to draw our center of our box at 2. Then we have 3 as a median or the upper quartile, and 1 is our lower quartile. That creates the box of our box and whisker plot. Our smallest piece of data is 0, which is our minimum, and that connects then to the box. And our highest piece of data, or our maximum, is 7, and that connects to the box. Now what you have to understand, that even though each of these sections might be a different size, it still represents 25% of the data, because 3 students, see if I can move them over there, were represented in this first piece of, or this first section of data. There was 1 student who had 0 brothers and sisters, 1 student who had 1, and another student had 1. Then these 3 students are represented in this portion of the box and whisker plot. because one student had one brother or sister and the other two each had two. Then in this portion of the data, again, is 25% of the data. 2, 2, 3 and 3. And then in this part of our box and whisker plot, these 3 students are represented. And then we have our one student left over, that is our median. Understand that even though this is a much longer section of the box and whisker plot, it is simply longer because the data is more spread out. However, we recall that each part of the box and whisker plot is a quartile, and it represents 25% of the data. It does not mean that there are more pieces or more parts of the data in there. Each has an equal amount of data, but because the data is more spread out numerically, that's why the pieces are longer. But each section represents 25% of the data. So how can we apply this or answer some questions? Let's take a look. It would be a good idea for you to copy this box and whisker plot into your notes and then to copy down the questions. You may pause at any time to do that. How many candy bars are worth $4 according to this box and whisker plot? The top number for our box and whisker plot is 3.5 or $3.50. So, how many candy bars are $4? None. What is the median price of a candy bar? Remember, the median is the very center of our data. It looks like the line that's going down the center is representing a candy bar that is $1.50. What does the wide span from $2.50 to $3.50 tell you about the candy bar prices compared to the $1 to $1.50? It does not tell you that there are more candy bars there, but what it tells you is the prices are more spread apart. In the $2.50 to $3.50 section. But each represents 25% of the data. Remember that there are 25% of the candy bars that fall in this category and 25% of the candy bars that fall into that category. Now, 25, 25, 25, 25. What I'm looking for now is half or 50% of the candy bars fall from $1 up to $2.50. Because 2 sections would represent 50%. It says one of the candy selections is $1. Are most of the candy prices higher or lower than this? Most are higher because at $1, that is only one part. It represents one part, which is 25% below, and then 3 sections are above $1, which means that would be 75% above. Let's review. Please remember how to construct a box and whisker plot. Remember that the data must be in order from least to greatest. You need to find the middle, which is the median. Once we do that, we find the middle of the lower and then the middle of the upper portions and find our maximums and minimums, which would be our whiskers. Please remember that a bigger section does not mean more. It means that the data is more spread apart. And please remember that each section of the box and whisker plot represents 25% of the data in each part. Please remember to complete the reflection.